In exactly 1 year, Hong Kong becomes a part of China. And in marking those celebrations, it's been a day of mixed emotions. Here in Chater Garden, the Democratic Party is gearing up for a candlelight vigil, which begins at 8 o'clock. They're protesting China's determination to dismantle the elected legislature and replace it with an appointed body. And it caps off what has been a day of celebrations and protests. Angry and frustrated, they gathered in Chater Garden. They say July 1st, 1997 is no cause for celebration.
Apart from celebrating or being glad at the end of the colonial era, we are also expressing our worries like about the setting up the Provisional Legislature, worry of regression in democracy, a regression in human rights.
Around 400 people marched through Central, slamming Beijing's determination to abolish the current legislature. They fear an end to Hong Kong's basic freedoms. But elsewhere in Hong Kong, people welcomed the year before the colony rejoins China. 2,000 members of the pro-Beijing Federation of Trade Unions marked the occasion with a trip to Shenzhen, where they'll tour a cultural site. And smiles and good wishes later replaced the anger in Chater Garden. Around 200 people turned out for a pep rally by the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment of Hong Kong. The chairman of the pro-Beijing party says the pro-democracy forces are too negative.
We face the problems squarely, we tackle the problems squarely, but we need this realistic, pragmatic, positive attitude so typical of Hong Kong people.
Pro-democracy protesters ended their march at the headquarters of the New China News Agency. Tomorrow, 8 members of this group will try to fly to Beijing. They want to present officials with a 40,000-name petition opposing a provisional legislature. But the deputy NCNA director issued the group a veiled warning. At least 6 other members of this group have already been refused visas or entry permits to China. And not since the democratic elections in South Africa of 1994 has there been this much international media attention focused on one story. Just covering it this afternoon, I noticed Swiss television, I noticed New Zealand television, even a leading Polish newspaper. In fact, an estimated 3,000 international journalists are expected to come to Hong Kong to cover this story. The sun may be setting on the British Empire, but on June 30th, 1997, the media spotlight will brighten the new day. Will Chinese leaders be mobbed by demonstrators? Will there be a big show or a solemn ceremony? Whatever happens on June 30th, 1997, the world's media will be there en masse. The handover is expected to attract close to 3,000 journalists.
I imagine that the most dramatic moment will be the lowering of the Union Jack. But that will be the most dramatic moment in the eyes of the British. But the most important moment in the eyes of all the Chinese will obviously be the parades that follow, celebrating our retaking the sovereignty.
The BBC compares the story to the South African elections or D-Day anniversary celebrations. Its coverage will be extensive. The network plans to bring in at least 100 extra people to help.
I think you'll find that we'll build up the number of people here in probably 2 weeks before the event, and a number will stay on until about 2 weeks afterwards.
Japan's NHK also plans extensive coverage. Over the last year, the broadcaster has increased staff and now produces a nightly show from Hong Kong.
Hong Kong is a very, very important place, mainly for economic reasons. So the Japanese has much concern to Hong Kong.
For now, there are no restrictions on media coverage. Whether that will change will surely be the next big story. Here in Chater Garden, meantime, the Democratic Party is gearing up in about 20 minutes for a candlelight vigil. They're protesting China's plans to abolish the democratically elected legislature. And part of today's program includes some singing, a drama, and also a video documenting Hong Kong's democratic reforms. Derek and Stacey.
Thanks, Ray. Ray Rudowski reporting live.